Hi, I'm Mary.
And I'm Lindsay.
And this is Hustle from the Heart, a podcast where we have conversations about heart-led decision making. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm all right. Getting it back together.
Same.
You know,
Yeah.
after the excitement this morning.
Yeah.
Coffee on the carpet.
The white rug. Woohoo!
Yeah, I was just thinking for a second I was going to sit down and give Ellie some love on the carpet to set my coffee mug down, and then you joined me and we were just loving on her, and she decided she's going to pop up and run in the direction of my coffee mug, and so we both go to grab her, which speeds her up, and she knocks the whole cup of coffee over on the white rug. And I mean, it's fine. We cleaned it up. All is well.
Yeah.
But it was definitely
Exciting.
it was a moment of me being like, why did you choose to put black coffee on the white rug? Why was that a good idea?
Yeah.
And I appreciate your patience with me and your understanding and
Of course.
not getting upset about it. And we got it up, and it's
It's nobody's fault.
no more stain.
No more stain.
Don't even know what happened.
It's like not even something to get upset about. Like, okay, we spilled coffee on the rug. We got that carpet cleaner.
Yeah, I think we have those initial feelings from like childhood, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Of messing something up or spilling something, and we're just like looking at the other person like, are you going to be angry with me?
And then both of us in those moments, because when I have those moments, you're like, stop talking to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you did that to me too. You're like, it's okay, don't,
Yeah.
you know, you
Because
don't give yourself such a hard time. I'm like, how could you do that?
Yeah.
Why did you not know that, you know?
I know. I love how it's like when we're the one who makes the mess, then we go into that like self-criticism.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's also a childhood generated response for the other one who had nothing involved in it to be like, it's not a problem.
Yeah, but
like, that's how we wanted to be seen. Like, it's not a big deal.
You know what I've noticed is that when we are in ourselves and we're giving ourselves a hard time or we're shaming ourselves, it's almost like we're doing that in front of the other person so that they know, like you say it out loud, so that you know that I'm upset with myself. So that you don't think that I'm taking this lightly.
Oh.
So I found that to be interesting.
Oh, that's what you do?
That's what I felt like.
Oh.
I need to shame myself so that you don't think that I'm taking this lightly.
Oh, see, and when I'm doing that, it's like I need to shame myself so I know that I'm not taking it lightly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I am not even, when those moments, I am just like, oh my gosh, I have to clean this up. This is my fault. I'm acknowledging that
Right.
and I feel very frustrated with
Because
myself.
it might be different if I were alone. You know, I might be like, this is frustrating, but I don't think I would outwardly, like out loud shame myself.
Oh, no.
I think I voice the shame so that you know that I know that I'm like.
Oh, okay. No, that's interesting.
It is interesting.
Well, I've lived alone for the past decade.
Yeah.
So this is that's just what I would do. I'd be like, gosh darn it, Mary. Like, oh my goodness. I was always talking to myself.
Yeah.
Like, if you live alone or you've lived alone, like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you are constantly having conversations with yourself. I know I'm not the only person to do that. But so maybe for me, it's just for me acknowledging out loud to myself, which is why I don't think about. That's interesting. But yeah, so it was. We got it cleaned up. Both of us jumped into action, but you crushed it with soaking it up into the rag. I was impressed. You were dedicated to getting that up before we even used the carpet cleaner. Good job. Very patient
Yeah.
with the process. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. You got a new cup of coffee.
I did.
I was more sad for you about that. It was almost a full cup of
She's
coffee.
like, oh, you didn't get to drink any of your coffee. I'm like, well,
Actions and consequences. Just kidding.
I've got more. All is well.
You've got more. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about today? If you don't have anything, I had something on my mind, but is there something you want to
We're talking about relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
Well, I was just thinking about what you said last night when I feel like a lot of these podcast conversations are generated after, like, we're watching one of my card readings.
Oh.
And then something comes up. But so you said something during my reading.
It really is not every night. We're really not sitting on the couch every night watching card readings.
We do quite a bit of other television watching too. And other things. We go outside. Anyway, so you had said we're in this process right now of manifesting and really putting our energy toward things that cultivate the life we want, the business we want, just everything, like the future we want together. And we're really focusing a lot on abundance and bringing more abundance into our individual lives, into our shared life. And you said, hey, can you pause it? I want to share this. And so you shared with me that you had been thinking recently that perhaps we were limiting our view of what abundance we're receiving and what it can look like, and that you really decided and discovered that the home we have, which we love,
it's beautiful.
It's
kind of like my ideal. It's my ideal loft.
Yeah.
In a downtown area.
Yeah.
That with a great view. I mean, it's with an extra room, like for exercising, and like it's perfect. Yeah. I mean, it has its moments, but with the elevator.
Shout out to the elevator. But you just talked about how this home and just the view that we get to look out and see nature and the skyline and the river, that is abundance. And then you were like, and this love that we have, this partnership, like this is abundance flowing into our lives. And so can we continue to go in that direction? And then we had a bit of a conversation about how following that, so really living from a place of like we are receiving this abundance, we can give back from this place. We both really live our lives from our heart space, and we have love flowing into us constantly, and so we have so much that we can give that out. Just like people who have a lot of financial wealth have the ability to give back financially. And we talk about how we really look forward to being in that place where we can do that. But right now, how can we use the love that we have that is flowing into us as that, let's give something back. And I thought that was so beautiful and just such a aha, it really clicked something for me, and I appreciated it. So I want to talk more about that in the relationship aspect of it.
Yeah. Well, I would like to speak on that just in general about like comparing abundance to like financial abundance. But I think that we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to move the needle with the amount of work and effort that we put in. Granted, that's needed, but there are times when we're pushing or doing, and then there's moments that we need to take a beat, take a rest to then get further intel, like let the universe work through us, let it guide us, to really point us in the direction of where we need to be. So I don't always think that abundance comes from the push, and that's why we're in this podcast, like of heart-led living. So if we can gather all that energy and love from the abundance of our lives, what does that put out into the world? Like, what does that heart-led living kind of naturally come back to us in the form of abundance? Whether that's like our cup being filled, and just overall connection to people in life. Because for me, it's like, yes, I want money because money gives me stability and the freedom to do things. But overall, we want to be happy, right? And if we can look at our lives currently and find the happiness and the abundance in what we're in, the relationship or the job or whatever is bringing us joy and abundance, to me, that's like, you've arrived in a really important space. And that is a great foundation to then continue your journey towards that financial freedom and abundance.
I live with and get to love this intelligent woman, everyone. What a gift. She's so insightful. So it's really, honey, that's really, I love that.
Yeah.
It's a very profound way to view it. And
well, what if we could start there?
yeah,
like
we got to start somewhere.
You know, people that I've been in the place of struggle, honey. Like I've lived in someone's basement and washed my dishes in a utility sink and used a hot stove, like a hot plate, honey. Like I've been in some just not great living situations. So this living situation, this is abundance. To look at your life and say, where did I come from? And where am I now?
Yeah.
And really appreciate that. Like, even if it's like one level up, you know, even if it's just a slight increase, to be like grateful and thank you for this abundance. And what are the steps, even in relationship, or the choices that we make? How do you create that foundation of joy and abundance in your life? We're not talking about financial abundance. We're talking about life choice abundance, partnership, relationship, job, everything. And then see where that takes you.
Well, I would say you said about like living in struggle, that I have experienced that in my own ways. But with relationships, with our relationship, this is the most loving, this is the most incredible romantic partnership I have ever been in my life. And it is exactly, I feel the way I want to feel. And so to know, I mean, we talk about this sometimes, how when we're going through those stressful situations, one of us is like, I'm really worried about things, blah, blah, blah. And the other one's like, we're going to figure it out. It's going to be okay. Is it, we've then had those conversations of, you know, I really feel a sense of peace about the uncertainty of certain things in our lives because I have this home base to come back to, because our relationship, first of all, I think that we're able to have the relationship with each other that we have because we both have a very strong relationship with ourselves, and we have a lot of love for ourselves, is that we both came to this space of like, this is what I want. I will accept nothing less.
Right.
This is how I want to show up, and I will accept nothing less or different.
And we don't need each
No.
other, right, to complete something
within
us. Yeah.
So, but that we're able to do that coming from that really like centered space within ourselves.
Right.
But that we often talk about how the other things that are a bit more up in the air, that because this is so solid and so secure, and we have each other, and we keep choosing it. The other stuff, it's stressful, but it doesn't feel like the house is on fire, like 5-alarm type thing, and we need to. Yeah.
I just want to pivot slightly.
Yeah.
What would the advice be for someone that's single that wants to create this foundation, that maybe is either struggling to find a relationship, doesn't want a relationship, or is in transition in some way? Like, you know, how can we still create that level of abundance in ourselves? So to me, I will just speak about like when I was single, it was important to me in my routines, right? What was I doing for myself every day to create that foundation of abundance in my own self? So it was like getting up at a reasonable time, making my bed, making my breakfast, getting out on a walk, listening to something positive, you know, a really uplifting podcast or music. And I think those things are things that people that are single can reach for to create their own abundance, their relationships with their friends, you know, coworkers, whatever it may be, to create that foundation even when you're single.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would, my big thing would be connection, finding what, identifying what does connection mean to you and what does that look like for you. So when I started really getting into that space within myself of, okay, I am looking for a lot of validation from outside of myself instead of from within, it was like, okay, I really need to figure out, how do I want to fill my own cup? What are those things that matter to me? How can I, because seeking that from outside of myself was causing me a lot of anxiety. I felt it was not a healthy emotionally, physically, mentally situation for me. So figuring out, how do I create community? What are the things that I really enjoy? And that was when I did a assessment and really looked back on it and was like, I stopped doing things that brought me joy, that filled me with a sense of awe. And I was like, what are those things? So paddleboarding, spending time in nature, rock climbing. I do have all my routines and stuff, but I'm a very routine person. So like getting up and doing all those things didn't really fill that for me. It was getting out in the world and doing things that I really enjoyed. So some people that is going dancing, or playing a recreational league sport. Other people it's, woodworking or crocheting, joining a quilting group. There's lots of different things, whatever that might be. So just
filling
that
would
cup,
be right?
Yeah, and that's if you want relationship, like a partnership. If you don't, if you're whatever transitional between something, whatever that could be, is just like that would be my advice: is let yourself do things that you really enjoy, and if something piques your interest, give yourself the permission to try it with the expectation of, I'm going to learn something about myself. That's the only expectation I have, is I am going to learn something about myself through this. Whether that is, that is actually not the thing I enjoy.
Right.
Or
knowing when to
wow, I really am skilled at this. This is something I didn't even know I was going to be so good at or really, really like, or whatever. So just trying new things with the expectation only to learn something about yourself.
Yeah, and knowing when to let things go if it's not feeling good. And then that's the same for a relationship. If there's a relationship that's not filling your cup, and you might, if you're single, you might be holding on to people, or circumstances because you don't want to be alone. You don't want to be completely isolated. Some people are terrified of being alone. And I think they hold on to people that may be toxic because they're like, well, that's all that I have. I've been friends with this person for 20 years, I don't want to, move on from this. But
I do want to say that is not a personal failing or anything like that. That is our primitive brain doing what it is designed to do. We are a species that are hardwired for connection with others. And that is because our link to other people tells our brain we are safe. If we're not a part of a community, we're alone, and we're more, vulnerable to the tiger. So that is a primitive brain doing what it's designed to do.
I do want to say that I did want to bring this up because I don't want it to be like this couple that's like, oh, we've got the best this and that, and we are so abundant. There are times where life is hard and it sucks, especially if you're single and it's hard to meet people. But in those moments, I think we both were manifesting what we did want. So we weren't stagnant and sitting still. We were filling our cup, we were finding abundance, and we were also actively putting the energy out of what we wanted to receive next.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even when you're in a relationship with somebody, I know that right now we're talking more specifically about it within romantic relationships. So even when you are in a relationship with somebody, it can be, if it's a romantic partnership that is not in alignment with who you are, and you're not feeling the way that you want to feel, you're not showing up in the way that you want to show up. It's, you're not, the way that you're showing up isn't being reciprocated, whatever that might be. That's just as stressful as that uncertainty that can come with being single, of like, dating is hard. It is hard. And so you're exactly right that I know I did that. And because of the conversations we've had, I know you've done that we both really thought about, how am I feeling? How do I not want to feel? I think it's very important that we identify because I think it's easiest to figure out I don't want to feel that way. So really taking stock of, okay, these are the things I don't want to feel. Here are the ways that I do want to feel. And then being like, okay, how do I want to show up in relationship, whether that's friendship or romantic relationship, whatever that is, but how do I want to show up? And knowing how you want to show up and how you want to feel, in my opinion, is much more important than having somebody checking a bunch of boxes for you, whether that's in a friendship or in a romantic partnership, because the boxes aren't necessarily always going to be the things that touch on the way that you want to feel. You know, a person could be everything on paper.
They could be great all around.
And if I'm not getting the type of, you know, interaction or care, reciprocation that I would like to have, I'll say this, it's so much easier for me to know that my needs are being met when I'm feeling the way that I want to feel, as opposed to someone checks all the boxes and I am anxious, I'm uncertain, I don't know what's going on, I feel, I just feel disconnected from this person. So that is what you said, like by both of us knowing really how we wanted to feel when we first met, we were able to, that happened. We each had our own moments where it was like, I would like to spend more time with this person. I want a second date because I felt the way that I wanted to feel. And I think you felt the way that you wanted to feel.
Yeah. And I want to talk about too, when you're in a relationship and it's not like going the way that you really want it to, it's not lighting you up. You're not necessarily feeling passion or joy in the ways that you want to. Yes, it may be good, and in its own way, it has its moments of feeling healthy or stable, but there's a longing in you. I don't think that necessarily goes away. I think that there's a longing in there for something different. That's just my opinion. I've tried to work on that to make it different, and not that it's ever anyone else's fault, you know, for why it doesn't work. I think some people just come to their point in their relationship and they maybe aren't meeting in the same place anymore. And that's okay, but to recognize that and know that, hey, this feels stagnant and a little like we're stuck in the same cycle, in the same loop, and you're not going to bring in that future abundance and that new, you know, that you that is moving through life in the energetic way that you want to.
Yeah. Sometimes in relationships, whether they're friendships or romantic partnerships, or even the relationships between siblings or parents and their adult children, we grow together. And that is really awesome. You know, I know people who they got married in their early 20s and they are 15 to 20 years into their marriage and they grew together and they just have had their bond has grown even stronger. And other people who they and their spouse at the time grew apart. And that's, that is the reality. Those are some relationships.
There's
others where it's like very
tricky.
Tumultuous or they're
tricky.
Unsafe, they're violent, dangerous, whatever. But in some relationships, it's like we just grew apart and we grew in different directions. And that is beautiful in its own way. And to be able to come to a really like a mutual understanding. I mean, I would say that there's a lot of love and friendship between, you know, in your previous marriage that was like you both are able to maintain like a healthy connection with one another. It's something that I admire because
I do want to say that sometimes it can be tricky in relationship. You know, things can really I don't want to say it's like coming from ego, but we will talk ourselves into being like, no, you need to try harder. You could try this or do this. And granted, like, I am proud that I did take a lot of steps that we both did in trying to figure out what would work. And then ultimately deciding that the thing that we needed most, you know, wasn't there.
Yeah.
And to part ways and to keep a relationship, to keep a friendship, and to be able to move forward before it gets so toxic that you break without any, continued relationship, which a lot of people do. They just go to the point to where they're done, and it's so much chaos in the ending, and there's so much pain that they no longer get to have that person in their lives. And I think that a lot of times that's what people fear, is losing this person that has gotten to know them, and they've gotten to know over so many years, to be like, it's like a death. Like, I'm going to lose this person and I want to hold on. But what happens if we can look at that relationship and say, okay, we've come to this point, we've tried everything that we can try, and now would be a good time to part ways, and I'd still like to be friends and move and have you in my life.
Yeah.
Like, that to me has been the most, I don't know, profound experience, to learn that, like, it's okay that this thing didn't work out because it was holding me back energetically from reaching towards more abundance in my life, because I was so fixated on making the relationship work and fixing it that I wasn't focused on my own self. Neither one of us were. We always gave to the other person while ignoring our own selves and our needs. And when it comes to that point, when you're constantly in a relationship giving to the other and not focusing on your own true path and goals and what you really love, that's not going to ultimately bring in that abundance and that life that you really want to live.
Yeah. Well, so there's that, which is, I mean, I would say it's probably the ideal, that most people are like, man, if this has to end, I want it to end in the most loving and respectful and mutually agreeable way. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where it's like, oh no, I was with you, and the way that you navigated this, or the way that you treated me in our relationship, was not okay.
Well, if there's disrespect,
that like sometimes we can maintain those connections, and sometimes it is like it is best for our ability to love ourselves and move forward in ourselves and really put move along that path toward the abundance that we're trying to that we're bringing in, to be like, I never want to speak to you again. And that is
also okay.
Perfectly
That's needed.
okay as well.
Absolutely.
If it's needed and if it's best and right for you. Because there are some relationships where it's like, yep, that's the best path possible. And, then there are people who they have to maintain connections with toxic people. If we're speaking in a romantic relationship situation, especially if they're co-parenting. And that can be really tricky and challenging to navigate also. And there is a lot to be said about doing what you did. I mean, when we met, we talked about your relationship, your marriage, and that you were like, when you love somebody, you show up and you give them that space to learn more about themselves. And I think that is such a kind and compassionate way to view things. And I do believe that is the act of marriage. I mean, vows and that kind of thing. And, giving that space, because just writing people off immediately also can keep us disconnected and shut down as well. Yeah. Not giving people space to grow and learn and just change or grow into themselves with that love and safety. I mean, because that can end relationships just as quickly as well. I mean, speaking from my own experience, that is what happened with me and some of my family, is that it's like, not being given the safe, open space to grow into the person who I truly am, instead of being a cookie cutter, which is really how I felt. It was like, we had kids and they're just little carbon copies of us. And when you fall out of line, like, you lose favor. And that is a very harmful, dangerous way to engage with people. But instead of being given the space to be who I really am and really grow and have that be embraced, that like the person I was becoming as I moved out and started opening up my worldview and expanding my perspective and forming friendships and relationships with people who were very different from me, who lived lives very differently than I had. And that was viewed as a threat. And as something that was bad and needed to be shamed and criticized and shut down. And when I rejected that, when I was like, no, this is the path I get to choose as an adult, as a free thinking adult, that it became more and more contentious and uncomfortable. And that for many years, I walked into situations I had to put on that suit of armor to go to functions, holidays, and birthday parties, and even just like family dinners and stuff, and constantly showing up and saying like, this is what I need. This is how I want to be treated. And eventually just being like, I should not have to ask to be treated a specific way. And when you give people ample opportunity and the actual path to like, this is how we can coexist peacefully, and they continue to violate that and treat you poorly, like that's what ends up happening, is that like you give the grace and you give the space over and over and over again, and eventually it's just like, I'm done. I have more respect for myself than this.
Well, how many people do you think stay in situations like that, and do you think that would have limited your abundance and living from a heart space if you'd have stayed?
So yes, absolutely, it would have limited it, because it did. It really held me back. It wasn't until I made a pretty big declaration and was just like, nope, and decided like, no more. I'm not going to entertain this anymore. It was shortly after that I then felt like I had the peace of mind and the mental space to make life-altering decisions, including moving across the country, which just blew my world wide open, which is so incredible. So yeah, I believe that I would have continued if I continued that and I maintained those connections, because it hurt every time. I was pulled back into a space of smallness and hurt and this area of like, I have to justify my humanity and I have to beg my own parents, which this is horrifying and it's heartbreaking and it's really disgusting. Like, I have to beg my own parents to care about me, just who I really am, and to see me. And that is not okay. And to be pulled back into that space of like, I'm fighting for my worth as a person. I'm fighting for my safety as a gay person with my own parents. Wow. That is, to be pulled back into that space, you can't move forward. So yeah, continuing to maintain that connection that's harmful to me, and it closes me off to the possibility of my future. And I think that for our relationship and the love that we have, if I maintained that connection, I think it would poison.
Oh, there's no way
between us.
There's no way that would happen.
I'd
be watching you continue. Like, you would not be in the same headspace. It would completely mess with your energy, which would then interfere with our relationship dynamic.
Yeah. And I don't want that. It makes me sad because, like, we have the potential to have this vibrant, extended family life.
Right.
And that's not the thing. I mean, we do have one.
Yeah.
We have our wonderful Richmond family.
Yes. And I think that's when you start looking at how do you fill your cup with missing that piece. Like, how can we, I don't want to say like transmute that particular energy, How do we change that into something positive?
Well, I would say that's where we shift that perspective. So I just had done by saying, we don't have this particular one, but we do have our Richmond family.
Right.
That looking at where is that family abundance coming from? Where is that?
And then the love and abundance that comes from genuine, real love and care really can be enough, you don't have to have this full, family structure, I know
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking when you don't and you have an expectation of your parents or your grandparents to be a certain way. But I think that in setting up supportive, loving, caring family members or friends really goes a long way in how it fills your cup and your abundance. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think that is a common experience in our community and the LGBT
Absolutely.
plus community. It's why
Absolutely.
chosen family
Yeah.
is such a common phrase in our community.
It
Is
is.
that like so many of us have to build a family of people who choose us and who we choose. And that is, I mean, if we go back to the early portion of this conversation, is like building relationships with people who give back to us in the relationship in a way that aligns with the way we want to feel, that really just like hits that really hard and fills that
Full on.
Yeah.
Full on acceptance and love and care.
yeah and that knowing how it feels in your body when you are not getting that is really, really important.
Yeah.
And then sitting with that and saying, okay, this is how I don't want to feel, but getting super, super clear on this is how I do want to feel. Because if we only focus on, I don't want to feel this way, we kind of chase not feeling that way. But if we focus on, I want to feel this way, and we start chasing that, then when we're not getting that, we will move on. And that is absolutely okay. And when we do get it, it's like, cool, I've got this. I'm going to continue to cultivate this.
You kind of learn how to gauge going forward your relationships and who you want to give your time and attention to and who you don't, or who you don't want to invest, because you know right away. You've noticed that, hey, this is a red flag and I'm not going to, continue this.
Yeah.
Is also important. Great way to walk away right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Without even having to invest so much energy into it. Because people show you who they are, I think, in a lot of ways, and right up front.
Yeah.
You can give it a little bit of time, but if things aren't changing, that's your sign that maybe this isn't the right way.
Yeah. And that by following, chasing, going after, whatever the word is for you, that feeling of this is how I want to feel, and allowing ourselves to find those things, whether that's through connection with other people, whether it's engaging in hobbies and passions, and whatever that might be, is like, I mean, it could even be watching a movie or listening to music. If you listen to a song and you're like, I love the way this song makes me feel, we continue to either listen to that song on repeat, or we find other music that also makes us feel that way.
Right.
It's the same in our relationships and hobbies and things. And so that's us filling ourselves with the abundance of that, whatever that feeling is. And we're then able to put that back out into the world, and it just really creates more.
I find that with music, I go through, like, the music comes to me in seasons. I don't know if you ever, like, I'll create I'll go through my likes, and I'm like, oh, I was in a season during this particular thing where I listened to the same 20 songs over and over again because they made me feel a certain way. I think that is very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it's with music, maybe it's with the books that we're reading, maybe it's whatever. All of that's going to happen. But to know that it's so reassuring. Even in this moment, I'm feeling how reassuring it is to know that it's not just the people in our lives who we can pull that abundance from. It's other things as well. It's just going after those feelings. And then from there, if we continue to go in that direction, it's exciting to think of what are the additional ways that things are going to expand, So by chasing self-love and going in that direction, it opened me up to getting back into my passions, rock climbing again, going paddleboarding again, that kind of thing. And then I met you. And so it's sort of spiraling. So it's exciting.
Yeah. So I think our imagination plays a huge role. So when we can sit and we can daydream about what it is we want to call in, that is putting that energy out and doing it when we feel good, doing it in the moments that our energy and our feelings are towards that, just to sit and let ourselves daydream and imagine what we want our lives to look like and feel like.
Yeah.
And then being able to journal too about that is really important.
Yeah. And we're just also giving ourselves permission to do things or not do things. Do things that we want to do that make us feel good, that give us those feelings. And to not do things that take away from us, that drain us, that leave us feeling bad about ourselves or whatever that might be. That it's really okay to, like, just give yourselves permission to do that. Give ourselves permission to do that.
I would agree.
Yeah.
So what do we want to leave our audience with?
I mean, I don't know. I just gave them an earful.
So think about where you are right now. Like, is it serving you in your highest? Yeah. Can you create abundance from where you are, from your energy standpoint? Like, how are you feeling in your body right now? Is it a yes or is it a maybe? Is it a no? Yeah. And what does that transition look like?
And what ways are you abundant right now?
Yeah.
What's
going good in your life?
What is going good in your life? What feels, I don't know if I want to say easy, but what gives you a sense of ease? What makes you feel at peace?
Makes you feel at peace,
joyful,
and happy.
Confident, whatever that might be. What are those things?
Yeah.
And how do you want to continue to feel? What are those, maybe really identify those feelings of like, oh man, this is how I want to feel. We talk about in coaching, I talk about this with my clients where it's like, envision your best possible self. How do you feel? What are you doing? Where are you living? Let yourself dream big. Like, what feelings does your best possible self have on a day-to-day basis? And engage in that from a space of, I deserve to feel this way, because you do. You get to deserve however positive you want to feel.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Feeling is you got to feel it. You got to feel like you're already there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this.
Hope you found a little nugget in all of this, as always. Yeah, I hope that it's helpful.
Yeah, like we say, take the things that resonate with you, and if the things that didn't, you can just leave them here on this podcast and enjoy the rest of your day, evening.
Yeah, thanks for spending your time with us, and give us a follow on Instagram at Well Within Studio. Also our website, wellwithinstudio.com, and you can find our podcast on YouTube and Spotify under Well Within Studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
Have a great day. Be well, guys.